Well, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well, enjoying the conference so far. My name is Brian Carey, and welcome to Legendary Defender. So I first saw Voltron, Defender of the Universe, back in probably 1984 and 1985, and I was fascinated from the start about the story of these 5 heroes who alone are very strong, right? They pilot these mechanical lines, if you're not familiar with the show. But when the situation becomes difficult enough or dire enough, where they can't defend alone, they are ready to form Voltron and harness the powers of the combined group. Now, in fairness, I was probably more interested in the toys than the show at the time, but it reinforced this concept of strength in numbers, or more importantly, strength when working together as a team. That stuck with me all these years. So as I grew older, I also came to love different analogies as making points. So I thought, what better way than to make an analogy for security teams with a beloved TV show? So I'll start with some context, which will illuminate the problem as I see it. I'll then introduce the Eris Corporation, followed by an introduction of our heroes in the story. I'll explain how these heroes can be strong when working independently of one another, and also how they can be weak when working independently of one another. And then I'll explain how our heroes are far stronger when working together. Then we'll meet the legendary Defender, our main hero, and we'll finish with a summary, and if we have a chance, some Q&A at the end if we have a minute or two to spare. So just a little bit about myself for some context. So I've had the opportunity to work in IT and security for over 20 years. I've held a myriad of roles from entry-level analyst to sysadmin, security analyst, various management roles, as an IT sec director, to an interim security officer for a manufacturing company. So I've experienced a lot, right? I've had successes, I've had failures. In my current job, I have the opportunity to meet with dozens of clients a year and discuss their security programs. I help identify process, people, and technology gaps and help recommend solutions. I meet with companies big and small and in many different industries. And despite all these differences, I see a lot of the same problems over and over again. And a lot of it comes down to organizational dysfunction. So allow me to elaborate a little bit. So I call this the organizational problem. Right, so let's face it, organizations around the world are under attack daily from sometimes very complex attacks, but probably far more often attacks that aren't super sophisticated. Most organizations have technology in place, whether it's firewalls, network segmentation, IDS, IPS, antivirus, malware protections, encryption, vulnerability management, the list goes on and on. Right, more often than not, technology is probably not the problem. Usually when I meet a client for the first time, I might have a few people in the room, usually someone from senior management, maybe a mid-level manager, an analyst or two. And as soon as I start asking questions, one of two things inevitably happens, right? Maybe the analyst starts explaining how their technology is deployed, how their processes work, and I can see the expression from the senior manager, like he or she is hearing this for the first time along with me. Right? You can see it on the face, right? I didn't know how the technology was working or how it was deployed. Or maybe the senior manager explains how the technology is deployed and how the processes work. And the analysts are biting their tongues and shaking their heads like, really? This is how he or she thinks this is working? This always translates into the analyst not trusting that their senior manager understands what's going on, or maybe worse, doesn't care to find out. The disconnect is born. Right? You might hear, my CIO isn't a technical person, he or she wouldn't understand. Or my CIO only cares about budgets, nothing else. Right? They keep trimming the department and they expect us to keep everything protected. Right? This can lead into siloed responsibilities, or what I call the fiefdoms. Right? An analyst might understand how AV is deployed, but doesn't really bother to understand how the technology is just one piece of a larger puzzle. They make decisions that make their job easier without consideration of how it affects other members of their team, either up or downstream. But I can't tell you how often I've seen a company with different AV solutions at different corporate sites, or multiple versions of asset management tools, patching tools, VM scanners, etc. This is the definition of teams not working together, the opposite of a true SecOps model, right? It's no wonder these organizations struggle to defend. I've also seen many organizations have a really great vulnerability scanner in-house. Someone from security runs daily, weekly, monthly scans and has all these great reports about vulnerabilities that exist, but they aren't the ones that have to remediate it. Right? I get the question all the time, hey, we're identifying everything. Why do I see the same vulnerabilities pop up every single month? Because nobody's taken the time to understand the needs of the remediation teams. What else is on their plates? Are they even being given the data in a consumable format? How often will your business allow systems to be rebooted for patches to apply? Right, there are a lot of factors to consider, and these are factors a lot of organizations don't take the time to figure out. And this is what I mean by SecOps versus IT-Sec. Right? Now, every organization is different, and I don't want to pretend that there's a one-size-fits-all solution. But more often than not, organizations that take the time to understand the challenges they face are in a far better position to defend. We need to empower a security culture within our teams. One other example we see a lot, an organization might have a great incident response plan, right? They've taken time to document the key personnel and their responsibilities in the event of an incident. The problem is they never inform those team members of what their responsibilities are, and they never practice it. Right? So when the time comes to initiate a plan, nobody knows what to do. And oh boy, how do we love to blame our users, right? Now, I understand that often they can be a weak link, but IT departments have to get out of the habit of viewing users as enemies. I'll address this later when we meet our heroes, and I know this is not the security awareness talk per se, but we have to start thinking of our users as frontline defenders. Right? How often I see organizations where users just don't want to raise potential security issues to their service desk or to IT or security directly because of how they're treated. Right? If I see a weird pop-up on my workstation or my workstation's acting strange, I'll just ignore it rather than be made to feel stupid by IT. So let's introduce the Aris Corporation. So for the sake of this talk, it doesn't really matter what they do. The point is that they're under attack from the Zirconian Mafia. Right? The Zirconians are doing all sorts of bad things to them, and the Aris team has 5 defenders who are responsible for thwarting the attacks and securing the organization. So let's meet our 5 defenders. First, we have our CISO, or maybe just some other senior manager. Now, yes, it's true, they are an important part of the defense structure. The CISO is the guardian spirit of IT-Sec strategy. Bad CISOs, and I use that term somewhat loosely, don't listen to their teams and don't understand the challenges that they face. CISOs sometimes come into an organization and try to implement a solution that worked at their last job. Right? There is no one-size-fits-all solution. You think back to that conference room where the senior manager or analyst was talking. If they misunderstand how the technology is deployed or how the process works, do you think they'll be adequately able to address the needs of the security team in the business? Right? They're very likely to misrepresent security maturity upwards. And because they're unlikely able to translate business needs into actionable strategy, lower-level analysts don't have any direction outside of keep the lights on. So when is our CISO ready to form Voltron? Right? They should understand how to align security strategy to the goals of the business. The CISO needs to be able to communicate these goals to the entire security team. Hey, just because you, maybe as an analyst, think an organization needs email-based DLP solution doesn't mean that that aligns to a business goal or need. And therefore, you might not get the dollars. The CISO has to understand the risk posture of the organization and make decisions based on this. There shouldn't be an adversarial relationship between senior management and team members. Alignment with the CISO is critical for the overall effectiveness of a security program. Now, if you are the CISO, make sure you have regular conversations with your team. If you're the team, don't be afraid to communicate successes and challenges to the CISO. Now, next we have a director or manager level. So, yep, you'll notice our first 2 heroes are senior management. All right? If you've been working in the trenches for a while, that shiver you feel up your spine is normal. It's not abnormal to feel like management is working against you. This is likely to happen if your director or manager is unable to bridge the gap between technology and the business. You may find yourself in a position similar to a previous job that I held, right, where we had some rotation among director levels. Right. One day, I suddenly reported to a director who previously served in compliance, and while she had great managerial skills, she had absolutely no technical knowledge whatsoever. Our department was now relying on someone with no technical skill to be able to communicate sort of from the field challenges to the CISO. Now, in a case like that, she was able to exhibit some of the good qualities I list. Right, she asked the right questions to learn about the technology we had deployed, and she was able to map that to a business risk and goal. A good manager is going to advocate for their team. So when is a director or manager ready to form Voltron? Those managers have to help their CISOs bridge the gap between technology and business. They need a good understanding of each. A good manager should know the issues that face their team. Is the team having trouble identifying and classifying assets? Did the latest pen test identify previously unknown vulnerabilities? How do these things translate into risks the business can understand? How do I help get the resources and tools my team needs to do its job? If my team has a roadblock, how do I get it removed? Now we come to the folks whose hands are actually on the keyboards, right? The folks who are responsible for implementing the technology, for monitoring the technology, and alerting other team members and management when something is wrong. Now, I use the term analyst very broadly here, but if you're responsible for something like AV deployment and management, the SIM or logging, web filtering, email protection, vulnerability management, pen testing, right, you fall into this category. So let me tell you where I see the problems with this hero most often. If you're lucky enough to work on a team where you can separate these functions out, just don't wear blinders. When I go in to assess an organization now, you might have an analyst who understands the VM platform, or again, who understands how anti-malware technology is deployed. And these folks become hyper-focused and can't see how the one piece of technology that they are responsible for fits into the larger security program. Worse yet, you might have analysts who disagree on what the best AV product for their platform is, for example. I've seen plenty of examples where the end-user workstation team might deploy one AV product, and the server team deploys a different solution. Or again, let me highlight the issue of vulnerability management. If you have 2 or 3 patching platforms in production, how can you reasonably expect to consistently provide actionable data in these cases? Now, if you have a team that communicates well and your director or manager understands why different AV platforms are deployed and this has been signed off and approved, great. But if these decisions are being made in a siloed fashion, it can spell absolute disaster. This is especially common for organizations that have multiple geographically dispersed locations. So when are our analysts ready to form Voltron? Now, some folks may not want to hear this, but it is important to heed the direction of your manager or the CISO. They need to provide the analyst with projects and priorities. If you as an analyst disagree, by all means inform and have the data to back up your claim as to why you need a process defined or a technology deployed. But don't go at it alone. Understand the technology you're responsible for and how it fits into the broader security strategy. And if you don't know what the security strategy is, by all means ask. But just be prepared to explain the technology you use and be prepared to react if an incident occurs. So I went back and forth a little bit on who would be my 4th hero, but I want to introduce a hero that I call the business process owner. Now, this may or may not be a title or role that you have at your location, but what it's meant to represent is business management and technical roles. So these are the people who set the strategy for how the company will make money, right? They are often the ones who choose the application platforms or technology that IT and security must support. The reason I bring this group of folks up is because those of us in IT don't often think of them as strategically important. But far too often, my experience has been that this group in particular often operates without any guardrails. They choose applications or technology to support their business streams without ever consulting IT or security, and we are often left scrambling to try to piece together a security strategy to deal with some technology that the business has suddenly sprung on us. This is where duplicated technology often originates. The best example I can give was a previous manufacturing role that I held. Every site suddenly decided they wanted security cameras installed. In a 6-month period, I had requests to build security into 12 different camera platforms. Different physical hardware, different vendors. Again, nobody thought to think, hey, do we have a solution for this already in the organization, something else that we can leverage? So when are business process owners ready to form Voltron? When we put in, or when we in security enable them to be agile while setting boundaries. Put together a security requirements document that allows for that agility to occur while still adhering to security principles. If you're a business process owner, all I can say is just please, please, please consult with IT and security first before you do anything. Yes, our end users. How we love to joke about them. Now, again, this is not a security awareness talk, but I think, think for a moment that you were someone in HR or finance or maybe manufacturing. You have a job to do that, yes, probably relies on technology, but you are not a technology person. If we treat these people as nuisances or take the attitude of our users are dumb, do you think they'll engage with us and let us know if they suspect a possible security incident? We need to treat our users as frontline defenders and equal when it comes to the overall protection of our organization. If a user does something that causes work for you, use it as an opportunity to educate. Again, when I assess an organization, I'm very curious to see what tools users are empowered with to report suspicious activity. Do users know how to even reach you? Do you have a service desk that calls route through? Maybe a ticketing system? If a company tells me they have 1,000 users and the service desk or security gets like 5 calls a month, right, that sets alarm bells off in my head right away. Right? I can guarantee you it's not because the security program is mature. So when are our users ready to form Voltron? Now, I know we probably don't have a lot of end users here today, but this can only happen when we in IT empower them and they are willing to speak up and get involved. We used to have a saying in a previous job, which was security is everybody's responsibility. Right? Did you get a phishing email? Tell somebody. Did you open an attachment that has you nervous? Especially tell somebody. Right? IT and security can only help if they know something is wrong. So there are some common themes here when our heroes don't work together and don't fully understand their role as defenders in the organization. Right? There is no unified security strategy. You might have policies and technology in place, but efforts are often duplicated and everything is being done on a reactive basis. Let's fix the problem we encountered in January with this technology. Oh, now we're seeing a different issue in February. Let's fix it with this technology. Right? There is no true risk analysis in these instances. This is how dollars get wasted, and this is very often how dollars are not available when you truly need them to mitigate a risk within your organization. C-levels and boards are disengaged. One of the questions I always ask early on when I meet a new client is information security a topic of, that your board talks about or that your executive team discusses regularly? Are security concerns recognized at all? If the answer is no, it's clear there's going to be dysfunction in that organization. Right? You have siloed IT or worse, shadow IT. Right? Every location or team makes decisions that work for them, and IT is left to try and support a mess of competing technologies. And God forbid a security incident occurs. Right? In this type of environment, would ARIS be able to react? Would ARIS even know that an incident occurred? Right? Probably not, because nobody would know what their role is. So what happens when our heroes do work together? Right? There is unified security strategy. It is well communicated, and everyone from the board to your executive team, to the IT teams to security, to your end users and the business understand what their roles are. Policies are written to align to business goals. and proper technology is deployed based on risk assessments that have been performed. Your board and C-levels are engaged, and information security is a regular topic at their meetings. And perhaps there are even some KPIs that are reported to them. So what does this all mean? It means when we all work together, our heroes are ready to form Voltron, the legendary defender. So we've had a chance while meeting our heroes to discover what makes them ready to form Voltron. We're now talking about the legendary defender, but this is really just an incarnation of all of our heroes working together, right? We are aligned as a team. So let's talk about what this means in the real world from a programmatic standpoint, right? So the assets of your organization are understood. You know what you have to defend, and you know who owns those assets. You know where they are physically, and you understand their criticality, right? You're maybe running a robust vulnerability management program, scanning all your network segments with regularity. You can prioritize remediation, not only on the criticality of the vulnerability, but also on the criticality of the asset itself. Right? You've got a scanner integrated with a ticketing system so that incidents and changes can be tracked and sent to the right people the first time. And you've got proper endpoint protections. You've got AV, no local admin access, web filtering, etc. You've got robust incident management. You have a plan that everyone understands, and everyone understands their roles, and you practice it. You have a good security awareness program, and keep your teams up to date with relevant training. But most importantly, the lines of communication among the team stay open. No matter which lion you are in this scenario, just be open to feedback. So the main point in here is you are not alone. None of us are alone in this. It is extremely rare that I see the legendary defender at any organization. If you think you're the only organization or person that struggles with any of this, I can promise you you're not. Right? Don't feel like you, as someone in IT or security, has to plug every hole in the dam immediately. Right? Your business should be guiding you. People often get confused as to who is supposed to accept risk. Right? The odds are it may not be you. It probably isn't you. Right? You may be responsible for identifying and explaining the risk, but it's usually maybe a business leader, senior management that has to take in all of that data and make a decision. And here's the thing. You may disagree with the decision that gets made. And this is okay. It really is. Senior managers get paid to make decisions like this, so let them make the decision. But don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. If you see a risk or you see a problem, you need to speak up. Like, don't meet the challenge head on alone. And please remember, your colleagues are not your enemies. At least they shouldn't be. If you are identifying with some of these bad lion traits that I've been mentioning, take this opportunity to affect change within your organization. And just respect one another and respect differing opinions. Right? The challenges that we all face are hard enough when we work together, let alone when we have to face the enemy on two fronts. So with that, I just want to say a really quick thank you to Patrick, who's got the green mohawk here as my mentor. Thank you, Patrick. So I think we came in like a minute short, so I don't know if there are any questions.
Any questions? Raise your hand. I'll bring the mic over.
A great presentation. I want to talk a little bit, or ask you rather, about the end users. As you said, we love to blame them. But what do you think we can do to maybe help modify, to some extent modify their behavior, but also modify our behavior to somehow mitigate some of that kind of click now, think later mentality that they frequently have? Is there something that you've maybe identified, I don't know, maybe push all the security updates at a certain time, so they know if something comes in, late at night on a Friday or whatever, that it's most likely not a legitimate, security update or something like that.
Yeah, so I think there's two things you bring up there, right? There's definitely a security awareness piece. So there has to be education within the organization. Generally, a lot of companies skip it over, or the extent of their engagement with the users is maybe we do a phishing test twice a year. There needs to be far more regular engagement, far more regular training sessions, if you will, with the end user population to get them to understand and better educate. And then I think it's how we engage with them, right? I think part of the issue is, again, generally more than not, when there's an issue, it's put more work on us now. They've done something that's going to cost us, maybe hours of work to remediate. And we have to approach it as, if we take that adversarial relationship with them at that point, they're just very likely to not engage with us again. So we need to be as supportive and again, just use it as any opportunity to educate as much as you can, and just try to put a positive spin on it, if you will. I mean, if they do something and they do call you, start immediately with, hey, thank you for telling me about this, right? That's the first step. That's the most important piece, so first a thank you, okay? And that sets the positive tone already with them. And then you can work on, maybe some of the other remediation things that you need to work on them with, but to me, training is the key.
Follow up? I'll grab this guy first.
Thanks for the talk. So I have a question. So we face challenges because we outsource more and more. So we hire a virtual CISO. We have managed security service providers. We business process outsource everything. Mm-hmm. Do you still think that this can work out, or is there at some point like lost battleground or something?
So are you saying, so is the outsourcing of security a good idea?
If the heroes are outsourced?
Yeah, so if the heroes are outsourced, to me, not much changes in my mind. I think what ends up happening is organizations outsource security, and then they think that they don't have to think about it anymore. Somebody else is handling this, and as the business, regardless of who's responsible for security, whether it's an internal person or somebody, a third-party provider, you as a business or you as an IT leader within our need to maintain engagement. But yes, I think it can work, because it's a model we're seeing a lot more of. A lot more managed service providers, a lot of third-party providers, a lot of external SOCs, things like that. But yes, I think it can absolutely work, assuming the business stays engaged with them. If they outsource it and say, I'm not thinking about this anymore, you're doomed to the same problems that you probably had previously.
All right. Big hand.